It was 3:42 p.m. on a rainy Thursday in a small, sleepy town in Pennsylvania when my doorbell rang. I was halfway through a cold cup of coffee, watching the rain turn my overgrown lawn into a soggy mess. I wasn't expecting anyone, and I figured it was just someone selling something. Insurance, religion, who knows? But as I opened the door, my life as I knew it unraveled like a thread caught on a rusty nail. The man standing on my porch looked out of place. His slick, tailored suit gleamed, untouched by the drizzle. He held a leather briefcase and wore the kind of confident smirk you'd want to punch off someone's face. "Mr. Collins?" he said, voice smooth as butter. "That's me," I replied, gripping the edge of the door. "I'm Michael Harding, Carol's attorney. May I come in?" I didn't have to guess why he was here. My ex-wife, Carol, and I hadn't exactly parted on friendly terms, and every interaction since had been like walking on broken glass. Still, his presence felt like a storm rolling in. I stepped aside, letting him into my cluttered living room. Toys Lori hadn't played with in months were still strewn about, and an old blanket Max used to curl up on lay abandoned on the couch. It smelled like stale coffee and loneliness. Harding wasted no time, pulling out a folder and flipping it open. "I'm here on behalf of my client, Carol. She's filing for full custody of Lori." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. Full custody? You've got to be kidding me. Harding's smirk never wavered. "She believes it's in Lori's best interest. She's remarried now, has a stable home environment. Frankly, Mr. Collins, the courts are likely to agree." I stood there, reeling. Carol had already taken so much. My dog, my weekends, my dignity, and now she wanted my daughter? No, that wasn't going to happen. "Get out of my house," I said, voice low and trembling with anger. He left without protest, but the damage was done. I stared at the rain streaking the windows, trying to process what had just happened. My chest felt tight, my head pounding with questions and accusations. What was Carol's game? And why now? That night, I dug through old documents, photographs, anything I could use to remind myself, and eventually, the court, that I was a good father. I came across Lori's baby book, a scrapbook Carol had lovingly assembled before things between us fell apart. Flipping through its pages, I felt a pang of guilt and longing. My fingers brushed over a picture of the three of us at the hospital, smiling like we had it all figured out. But as I turned the page, something caught my eye, a handwritten note tucked between the photos. It wasn't Carol's handwriting. It was a man's, looped, deliberate, and confident. "Thank you for making my dreams come true. Love always, T." Who the hell was T? The question gnawed at me all night. I knew Carol had grown distant during her pregnancy, but I never allowed myself to dig too deep into why. Maybe I hadn't wanted to know. But now, with this custody battle looming, I couldn't afford to leave any stone unturned. If this T-guy had been around back then, he was part of the story, and I needed to know his role. The next morning, I called in sick to work and drove to Carol's neighborhood. I wasn't proud of myself, but I wasn't leaving without answers. I parked a few houses down and watched from my car as Lori played in the front yard with Carol's husband, a tall, broad-shouldered guy with a perfectly trimmed beard. He looked like he had stepped out of a J. Crew catalog. My stomach churned. Just as I was about to leave, Carol came outside. She stood on the porch, phone in hand, her face lit up by a smile I hadn't seen in years. She was talking to someone who clearly made her happy. She laughed, tucked her hair behind her ear, and I felt that old, bitter mix of jealousy and resentment bubble up. I couldn't sit there any longer. I drove to the local bar instead, nursing a beer and flipping through my phone, trying to piece together what to do next. That's when my phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "You're not going to win this. She's mine now. T." My grip tightened around the phone. It was him. T wasn't just some relic from Carol's past. He was still in her life. But how? And why was he taunting me now? My mind raced with possibilities. Was he her husband? An old flame? Or something worse? Fueled by equal parts rage and desperation, I decided to dig deeper. I started with social media, combing through Carol's posts and comments. Most of her accounts were locked down, but her friends weren't as cautious. A few pictures caught my attention, group shots from barbecues and holidays. In one, Carol stood close to her husband, but her hand rested on another man's shoulder, a man who looked strikingly familiar. My heart dropped. It was Michael Harding, the attorney who had shown up at my door. The revelation hit me like a freight train. Harding wasn't just her lawyer. He was the guy she'd been sneaking around with back then, and now he was helping her take Lori away from me. I sat there, staring at the photo, trying to make sense of it all. This wasn't just a custody battle. It was personal. Harding wanted to erase me from Lori's life, and Carol was letting him. My thoughts were interrupted by another text, this time from my lawyer. Just got some troubling news about Carol's custody filing. Call me ASAP. I didn't know what to expect, but I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going down without a fight. The following Monday, I sat in my lawyer's office, a cramped space that smelled faintly of old leather and stale coffee. Bill Thompson, a no-nonsense family attorney with a penchant for bad ties, had been handling my legal affairs for years. He'd helped me keep joint custody of Lori when Carol and I first split. But now, even he looked rattled. Bill leaned forward, pushing a stack of papers toward me. "We've got a problem, Jake." "Yeah, I figured," I said, scanning the documents. "What am I looking at?" Bill sighed, rubbing his temples. "Carol's filing isn't just a custody case. She's alleging neglect. Claims you're unfit as a parent." "Neglect?" I barked, anger boiling up. "That's bullshit, Bill. I've done everything I can for Lori." "I know," Bill said, his voice calm but firm. "But she's got a well-documented case. Medical records showing Lori missed 2 dental checkups, a school report claiming she's been late 3 times when she's with you, and photos of the house when it was messy. That's minor stuff." I stammered. "And those pictures, those were from when Max tore the place up before I could clean it. She's twisting things." "She's playing dirty, Jake," Bill said. "And she's got the resources to do it. Her husband's money, plus that attorney of hers, Harding. The guy's good, real good." I stiffened at the mention of Harding. The revelation that he was still gnawed at me. A thorn lodged deep in my chest. "It's not just him being good, Bill. He's got history with Carol. I think he's the guy she was seeing when we were still together." Bill raised an eyebrow. "Are you sure?" I pulled out my phone, showing him the photo I'd found. "He's not just her lawyer. He's part of this whole mess." Bill sat back, processing the information. "If that's true, it complicates things. We can use it to question his motives, but proving it won't be easy. You'll need more than a picture." "Then we find more," I said, leaning forward. "I'm not letting them steamroll me. Lori deserves better than this." Bill nodded, scribbling a note. "I'll start digging into Harding's background. Meanwhile, you need to get your house in order. Literally. Fix the yard, clean up, and document everything. Show the court you're a stable parent." I left his office with a to-do list a mile long and a fire in my gut. This wasn't just about custody anymore. It was about reclaiming my life, proving I wasn't the screw-up Carol was painting me to be. The next few weeks were a blur of activity. I hired a cleaning service, fixed the broken porch steps, and even planted flowers in the front yard. Lori noticed the changes when she visited, her curious eyes darting around the tidier house. "Why are we planting flowers, Dad?" she asked, holding a small trowel. I smiled, brushing dirt off my hands. "Because this place deserves to look as good as you, kiddo." She grinned, her gap-toothed smile melting my heart. For a moment, I forgot about the battle raging around us. It was just me and my little girl, digging in the dirt, laughing as we splashed each other with the garden hose. But reality came crashing back when I received another text from Harding. This time, it was a photo of Lori at a park with Carol and her husband. The caption read, "She deserves this kind of stability." The audacity of it burned. He was taunting me, rubbing their picture-perfect facade in my face. But I wasn't backing down. Late one night, while Lori slept upstairs, I pored over old emails and documents, searching for anything to undermine Carol's case. That's when I remembered the security camera I'd installed years ago to catch Max chewing on the furniture. It had long since been disconnected, but the footage might still be on the old hard drive in my basement. I spent hours rummaging through boxes, finally unearthing the dusty hard drive. Plugging it into my laptop, I scanned through the files, a mix of mundane clips of Max wagging his tail and Lori toddling around as a baby. Then I found it. The date on the video was from Carol's 8th month of pregnancy, a week before she'd left me. In the footage, she sat on our couch, laughing with someone. The man leaned toward her, placing a hand on her belly. It was Harding. His face was unmistakable, even grainy and shadowed. The timestamp confirmed everything. He'd been there all along, sneaking into my life while I'd been too busy trying to keep our family afloat. Fury coursed through me, but beneath it was a deep, bone-chilling sadness. This wasn't just a betrayal. It was a calculated dismantling of everything I'd built. The next morning, I brought the video to Bill. "This is it," I said, slamming my laptop on his desk, proof that Harding was involved with Carol back then. Bill watched the clip, his expression hardening. "This changes things," he said. "If we can prove they were having an affair while you were still married, it undermines their credibility. It paints a picture of deception. Will it be enough?" I asked, my voice heavy with doubt. Bill shrugged. "It's a start, but we'll need more. Testimonies, records, anything to show their behavior hasn't been above board." I nodded, my resolve hardening. "Then let's find it." As I left his office, my phone buzzed with another text. This one was from an unknown number. "Stop digging, Jake. You won't like what you find." Chills ran down my spine. Harding was watching me, playing a game I hadn't agreed to. But if he thought I'd back down, he didn't know me at all. This was far from over. The custody hearing was scheduled for 9 a.m. sharp, a Tuesday morning drenched in icy rain that mirrored my mood. The courthouse loomed like an ominous fortress, its gray facade promising little comfort. I arrived early, dressed in my best suit, clutching a folder filled with every shred of evidence Bill and I had managed to compile over the past few weeks. Carol arrived next, her hair perfectly styled, her husband trailing behind her. Michael Harding was with them, the same smirk on his face that had haunted my nights. He made a point of locking eyes with me, a silent challenge passing between us. But I wasn't here to play games. I was here to fight for my daughter. Inside the courtroom, the tension was palpable. Carol's attorney outlined her case with smooth precision, painting a picture of me as a well-meaning but incapable father. They emphasized Lori's occasional tardiness, the messy house, and my unstable work hours. Every word felt like a slap, but I kept my face calm, even as rage boiled beneath the surface. Then it was my turn. Bill rose, methodically dismantling their arguments. He presented photos of the newly renovated house, a calendar documenting Lori's school schedule and appointments I'd never missed, and testimonies from neighbors who vouched for my dedication as a father. But the real bombshell came when Bill played the video. The grainy footage of Harding and Carol in my living room cast a palpable chill over the courtroom. Gasps rippled through the audience as Harding's hand brushed Carol's pregnant belly, his demeanor far too intimate for a mere acquaintance. "Your Honor," Bill said, his voice steady but firm. "This video demonstrates a long-standing relationship between Mrs. Collins and her attorney, one that calls into question the objectivity of her case. Furthermore, it suggests an ongoing pattern of deceit." Harding's face turned ashen, and for the first time, his confidence faltered. Carol shifted uncomfortably, avoiding my gaze. But the twists weren't done. During a brief recess, my phone buzzed with a notification, a message from a number I didn't recognize. It was a single photo. Lori, sitting on Carol's husband's lap, holding a stuffed animal I'd given her last Christmas. The caption read, "She's happier here. Accept it." My blood ran cold. Someone was trying to rattle me, but it only solidified my resolve. When the hearing resumed, Carol was called to testify. Under cross-examination, Bill pushed her to explain the video. She stumbled through a vague explanation about an old friend, but her story didn't hold water. Then Bill asked the question I'd been dreading. "Mrs. Collins, are you absolutely certain Lori is Mr. Collins's biological child?" The room fell silent, the air thick with shock. Carol's face turned crimson, and for a moment, she looked like a deer caught in headlights. "Of course she is," she snapped, her voice defensive. "Why would you even ask that?" Bill glanced at me, a silent warning before delivering the blow. "Because we have reason to believe Mr. Harding has been more than just your attorney and that his involvement with you predates your separation. Harding shot to his feet, his face a mask of indignation. Objection. This is an unfounded accusation. The judge silenced him with a wave. Mr. Thompson, you'd better have evidence to support this line of questioning. Bill nodded. We do, Your Honor. My client has submitted a motion for a paternity test, the results of which are forthcoming. The courtroom erupted in murmurs, the weight of the accusation settling like a dark cloud. Carol looked ready to burst into tears, and Harding's smirk was long gone. He sat rigid, his hands clenched into fists. That night, I sat in my car outside my house, exhausted but unable to go inside. My phone buzzed again. Another message from the unknown number. You're playing with fire, Jake. Drop it, or you'll regret it. I ignored the warning, forwarding the message to Bill. Whoever was behind this wasn't going to scare me off. I had nothing left to lose. The next day, the paternity test results arrived. Bill called me into his office, his expression grave. It's not good news, he said, sliding the envelope across the desk. My hands shook as I opened it. The words blurred together, but the result was clear. 99.9% probability that Lori was not my biological child. I sat there, numb. All this time, I've been fighting for a child who wasn't even mine. But as the initial shock faded, one thought crystallized in my mind. Lori was still my daughter. Biology didn't change that. Bill looked at me, his expression softening. This doesn't mean you'll lose custody, Jake. You've been her father in every way that matters. We'll fight this. But as the days wore on, the revelations kept coming. A deeper investigation into Harding's past revealed a trail of manipulation and coercion. He'd represented Carol pro bono, not out of kindness, but as part of his calculated attempt to insert himself into her life. The man was a predator, and now his facade was crumbling. On the final day of the hearing, Carol broke down on the stand. Tears streamed down her face as she confessed everything. Her affair with Harding, her doubts about Lori's paternity, and her regret for how she'd handled the divorce. The judge's expression remained impassive, but the weight of her words hung heavy in the room. In the end, the judge ruled in my favor. I was granted shared custody, with the stipulation that Lori's biological paternity didn't negate my rights as her father. It was a victory, albeit a bittersweet one. As I left the courthouse, Lori ran to me, wrapping her arms around my waist. Daddy, do I have to stay with them now? I knelt, holding her close. No, sweetheart. You're stuck with me. In that moment, I realized the truth. Family wasn't about blood. It was about love, loyalty, and the people you chose to fight for. And I would fight for Lori, no matter what.